So Joe Biden is going on the road to start to pitch certain provisions of the Build Back Better. I understand why everything obviously had to be rolled into one. It's reconciliation, right? So everything becomes really just about the number and what's the number, and everything works back from that. It seems to me this is a little bit late. I mean, he should have been doing this before.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, this should have been the project for the summer. But the fact of the matter is, the guy is old and he's tired. I don't know why. I'm not being facetious. I mean, I'm coming up with a reason. Like, why wouldn't you go out there? Look at this clip of Chris Wallace talking with John Barrasso. Barrasso is the senator from Wyoming. Listen, I mean, like the deep red. We're talking about deep red territory. Watch what happens when Chris Wallace brings up, one of the bigger provisions, one of the easier to digest provisions of this bill.
Let's talk about another part of the bill, which is universal pre-K. In the state of Wyoming, less than a quarter of children 3 to 4, who would be covered in the bill, are enrolled in publicly funded preschool. Less than a quarter. Wouldn't a lot of Wyoming families benefit from universal pre-K?
There are a number of things that will help the people of Wyoming. Overall, Joe Biden's policies have been hurting the people of Wyoming. And I believe that there should be things means tested. You just don't give things universally to everybody. I think there should be work requirements involved. The Democrats are trying to separate work requirements from just free government checks and programs.
Can we pause it just for a second?
The congressman from the Progressive Caucus say,
who does he want to work? The 3-year-olds? Is that what he's trying to do? You have to work for school.
No. Here's what he wants. If you want people to work, give the kids pre-K, universal pre-K. Mm-hmm. And also, this. I mean, I understand from his perspective, he's signaling, right? Like, this is actually something for what's going to happen is the blacks are going to do it. It's not going to be our, people in Wyoming.
They're going to teach CRT.
Yeah, they're going to teach them CRT. But he has to gloss right over the proposals.
Yeah.
But if Joe Biden had been hitting, now I don't know, you'd go to Wyoming. That's probably not the first place you would go. But if Joe Biden was in Arizona talking about universal pre-K, Kamala Harris is in Arizona talking about universal pre-K. Joe Biden's in there talking about community college, whatever it is. Like, just going and hammering these policies there. So it's not just a question of Kristen Sinema is sort of like obscuring the reconciliation bill. Like, what the hell does that mean? But Kristen Sinema is preventing you from getting universal pre-K. I mean, Kristen Sinema is preventing you from getting free community college. Kristen Sinema is preventing your mom or your dad from getting elder care. I mean,
that'd be huge there. Huge.
Oh my God, huge in Arizona. And the idea that this hasn't happened is complete political malpractice. It is Joe Biden either being literally physically just not up to the challenge of it, which I, find hard to believe. You couldn't send surrogates there. You have a vice president, or just so overconfident in their ability to sort of play this inside game. And now all of a sudden in the 9th inning, they're down by 6 or 7 runs and they're realizing like, oh shoot, you know what? We should have been playing, these hitters to pull the whole time or something. I mean, they get out there and promote the policies.
Don't play prevent defense over your entire political agenda. You have to
use other analogies, guys.
Well,
what you're saying.
Well, you know what the bottom line is? They should have been earlier in this whole process.
They need to be aggressive and be playing offensively and understand. It's not like, okay, Sinema and Manchin came out of the woodwork all of a sudden when Build Back Better was being proposed, and oh my God, these guys might be a problem. They may be presenting us with issues with their obstruction and their desire to whittle things down. If you had been going out there proactively, and again, if Trump if there was one or two senators holding up Trump's entire agenda, do you think that he would be going quietly and just like allowing the senatorial process to play out? No, he'd be going after them as the Republican president going after Republican senators. And so I think it has a lot to do with Biden's kind of creature of Washington mentality and his fetishization of the senatorial like debate process as something that should be sacrosanct and not influenced in any way by outside forces, including himself at this point.
I'm wondering if there was some sort of early on, like, you know, he's got an interesting White House, right? There are some definite progressives in the White House, and then there are some people who, you know, put themselves out as being progressive, but usually end up siding with the industry. And I'm curious if there was maybe early on two things going on. They maybe some people in the White House thought that the Mod Squad strategy and Kirsten would actually win. And maybe they just thought that they were bluffing and that at the end they would fold. Because all in the end, it being about keeping the Senate intact and not creating divisions as we go into midterms, you know, in a year, potentially like weakening some of these senators that they need. I'm just trying to think in the minds of a Washington operative about why you'd be so hesitant. And maybe it's just they didn't want to throw more flame, more whatever it is, on the fire, so that, you know, Democrats were fighting with each other going into the midterms. Listen, we're going to do poorly in the midterms. We're going to do poorly in the midterms. Would we have done poor if Biden was touring around? I don't know. I think this is the only way we keep whatever seats right now are on the edge.
The idea that voters care about division within the Democratic Party, to me, is just like,
that's their mentality.
I get it. Right. No, I know. I think you're right in like getting into their mind, and that's something that they're concerned about. No one gives a shit. Like, no one gives a shit about like hypocrisy shaming McConnell on the debt ceiling. No one gives a shit about like the infighting in the lead up to the passage of a bill when the midterms are a year away.
Yeah, they're not even aware of it.
No one cares. No one cares.
And I think, we'll get to the debt ceiling miscalculation in a second. We got an IM, Mr. Groupie. Has the crew heard of David Shore? Yes, I have. I think everybody probably has here. He has some pretty compelling data suggesting that Democrats will struggle to win white working class defectors without returning to racial conservatism, suggesting that left populism won't bring them back to Democrats. I will say this. I am very suspect of the idea that left populism will help electorally. I don't think it's going to hurt, but I don't think it's going to. I just don't think it is a necessary but insufficient thing to do.
Yeah, we saw Bernie attempt to left populism. He's the best person you could want to do it, and it wasn't enough.
No, and I think, but you do this because the way you shore up the people who voted for you to get into office is by actually delivering things.
That's right.
And when you come out to win an election, you're going to want those people. You want those people to show up first, because if they don't show up, it doesn't matter how many, you think you're going to collect from those who have defected from you. In fact, you won the last election. You don't need the people who defected from you. You need to get the people who voted for you, and you need to get their kids who have now aged in, and you need to get maybe you need to bring some of the seniors who are all of a sudden like, what? I have dental now? Holy shit. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, so like that.
Oh, it's called, I'm sorry, Sam, is that called expanding your base?
Yes, it is expanding your base. And you do that. You do that by being consistent with your principles, but expanding on how many of those principles reach people. Yeah. And I don't think, if there is a cohort of voters out there who have defected from the Democratic Party because they're racist or, racially confused, whatever you want to call it, there's nothing that you have to offer those people that is consistent with where the party is at now. And so you have to say, the way that we counteract the loss of those votes, to the extent that there was a loss of those votes, is by expanding based upon the principles that we do have. And I still contend You need negative partisanship. And so you try and put Republican Congress people who are running for office or senators or on the state level, you nationalize everything, because when you nationalize everything right now, it is, do you stand with Donald Trump and vaxxers and anti-maskers and pro-COVID people or not? That's where you put them in. You put them all in that question.
And I really do think that there is something to be said if you want to, if there is some sort of strategy, maybe it's not the leading strategy, but there is a way to bring in some of those folks again. It's to take people like that senator from Wyoming and others like him who are using talking points from the Heritage Foundation and just saying, instead of talking about their failures during this pandemic and your grandmother died because their lack of response, because they are owned by industries. I do think that's a very effective message still to this day. If you want to bring in the populists, you talk about, you have two options here. You got the guy who wants to expand, to 3K and expand, Medicaid and hopefully, Medicare further. Or you got the people who are owned by the big industries. You don't have another option. Bernie's not in the race. And by the way, that's a primary, which is a completely different strategy.